Hello, everyone. This is Nayiri from Low Carb and Fasting. So this episode is going to be part of the series on my channel called Type 1 Diabetics Talk, where I invite type 1 diabetics as my guests, and I am type 1 diabetic too, and we discuss type 1 diabetes and related topics. So if you're not familiar with any of those videos, please check the playlist. It'll be in the description below. And consider subscribing to the channel if you like my efforts. So today's guest is a mechanical engineer who's been devoting a lot of time and a lot of effort to researching diabetes and spreading the message of normal blood sugars for all diabetics. He's a certified diabetes educator, and he's also the author of 3 books on diabetes. Now, the first 2 of these books are in Arabic, and the last one was published in English, and it's called From 10 to 5, My Journey with Diabetes. Ahmed Afifi, welcome to Low Carb and Fasting.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Nice to meet you. Finally.
Ahmed, thank you so much for accepting my invitation. So we're going to talk about your books, but before we do that, can you tell our audience where you're from and then maybe your story of diagnosis?
Okay, I am from Egypt. I'm from Alexandria, Egypt. I was born there. Now I live between Egypt and United States. My kids are there studying, so I'm almost there for 6 months and then back to Egypt for 6 months. I work as an engineer. I'm a managing director of one of the engineering company. I work specifically in energy conservation, sustainability, and facilities management. And of course, I'm a type 1 diabetic. This is a big part in my life that cannot be ignored. And I'm currently in Alexandria, Egypt, actually. Yeah.
So when were you diagnosed?
I was diagnosed in 2003. It was in Dubai. 2003 exactly. I was diagnosed as type 2 diabetes, actually, but I wasn't. It took me 6-7 years to know that I'm LADA, actually, latent autoimmune diabetes of adults. So it's been almost 20 years now being type 1.
That's quite a common story when, because type 1 diabetes, traditionally, type 1 diabetes diagnosis happened with, at an earlier age. So that's why it used to be called juvenile diabetes. It no longer is juvenile diabetes, but classically trained doctors often misdiagnose. I've heard this story over and over again. They often misdiagnose LADA diabetics, as you put it, as type 2 diabetics. So, how did you then discover low carbohydrate? Because when you were diagnosed as diabetic, whether type 2 or type 1, I'm pretty sure your physician did not tell you about low carbohydrate diet.
No, actually, let me tell you, I was just spent 7 years being treated as type 2. I reached maximum dose of all pills possible, and my blood sugar was never under 200. I have a confidence in the medical field at the time, so I was followed to the letter. Literally, I was following, but I never had the right numbers, and I was actually got some bad complications by 2009. That moved me to search and get myself informed. So I got frozen shoulder, I got cystopathy, made my life like hell. So by 2010, I had the chance by accident just to read Dr. Bernstein's book. And I read the book like 4 or 5 times in 2 years. And then this book led me to a couple of other 2 books, which also have a very meaningful effect in my diabetes journey. The general book, Blood Sugar 101, why they don't know about diabetes or something. And then the other one is Gary Schiner book, Think Like a Pancreas. At this point, after 9 years of diagnosis, I wasn't taking any insulin. I was taking pills. As I said, my blood sugar 200 to 350. My A1C was like 11 or 12 sometimes. And I was a story similar to Dr. Bernstein, but no a single physician was convincing to give me an insulin, to prescribe insulin to me. So I took the lead. I just went myself and did the C-peptide test, and I found out that is I'm in the lower level of type 1 diabetes. I was 0.4 or something. So I convinced it was a smart physician. I convinced her finally in Dubai to prescribe me first Lantus, and then from there, I just start my journey. I read a lot about low carb by Dr. Bernstein and other books. Like David Perlmutter book, Grain Brain, and Wheat Belly, Dr. David, and then I started in 2011 to follow the low carb diet and see the difference myself. And it made a huge impact. The first time after 3 months of following the diet, my blood sugar, my A1C went down from 11 or 12 to 6.2 in 3 months. So I started to gain my life back, and then I even experimented deviating a little bit away from the diet to see the difference if it comes back or no. And then yes, the first time I deviated for 1 month, I go to 8.5 again, and this is a story of up and down until I committed myself to it, and I learned a lot. Keep being informed and in the knowing circle makes a huge difference in diabetics' life, indeed.
Ahmed, can you tell us about your books? So the first 2 books were written and published in Arabic. What are they about? What are the titles? And you can give the Arabic titles and the translated titles as well for our audience. But what are they about? Because after those 2 books, you wrote the book that I want to discuss today. So let's start with your first books.
Okay, in 2010, when I started the journey of learning about diabetes management, actually I went to one of the biggest bookstore in Dubai to find a book in Arabic to learn more about diabetes management, and I did not find. No. I found a kind of translation of ADA, guidelines and stuff like that. So it amazed me that in Arabic world, was 25% of the population has diabetes, and almost 15% have pre-diabetes status, and there is nothing there in the literature that teach them how to day-to-day learn how to control their blood sugar. So it was a crazy idea for me to write a book. I never been an author before, but I said just let me start, because I'm an engineer in the Middle East who write a medical book. It's just something difficult, and I was a war, actually, that kind of war. But I just made sure that every single information have the right background for it and the right reference to it. Especially that we talk in science, actually. So we're talking. We're not take an onion and you will be fine, or take a carrot and these kind of things, which is kind of quackery or something. No, I just put science, and my aim is to put a book that have everything on it. It came in around 460 pages. I put everything on it. That time there is no culture of counting carbohydrates, no culture of insulin factors, IOB, insulin board. Nobody knows anything about this. So I read a lot. I was working up to 6:00 p.m. every day, 6 to 7. I walk 1 hour a day. Then I come back. In those 3 years, I wrote the book. I came back from home. I read for 3 hours and I write for 4 hours. It took me 3 years, including editing, everything, to have this book published. And it just the type of emails and the correspondences I received from people, it showed me that it was never a waste of time. People learn from this a lot because it's based in science and in personal experience. So I never dictate to people in my books to do this, and this is the only way. I don't like to do this because people, when you do this, they become more stubborn actually and resisting the fact. So I always go the easy way. I say, this is my experience. You could just try, and your meter is your approval. If the meter says something, bad, then it is bad. If I tell you to eat an apple and your sugar is 180, you shouldn't do it. If it is 110 and you're fine and you have a tolerance for it, just do it. Don't take my word for it. Just try. Just like Dr. Bernstein did when he had his first research. So the book was published 2015, and it's doing great actually. And I'm happy that I've done this kind of building block in the road to diabetes management.
So give us the title of your first two books.
Well, I have two books in diabetes only, and I have other two books in non-diabetics. So the book in Arabic is What You Don't Know About Diabetes. In Arabic, I don't want to say in Arabic, but this is what you don't know. Yeah, ما لا تعرفه عن السكري. What you don't know about diabetes. This is the first book. The second book was from 10 to 5, my journey with diabetes. Before that, it was a book with a philosophic thinking in nutrition and life. It says in Arabic, this is in Arabic also, في الحب والحياة والopen buffet, in love, life, and open buffet. The mentality of open buffet, the mentality of food abundance, the mentality of everything is there, and we can in Alaska, we can get pineapple from Sri Lanka anytime in the year. So also it was a nice book. And then I had in 2020 I wrote short stories called Circle of Happiness, around 7 or 8 stories, because I like to write short stories and novels. But the From 10 to 5 is the other one in Joy. I was too gifted that it was forwarded by two people that I admire. I never thought that they will accept forwarding the book. Dr. Gary Fittick from Australia, he's a well-known orthopedic, surgeon. I sent him the draft. I thought he will never do this. He was in Spain with his beautiful wife, Blenda. And once he read it, and he agreed at the moment, and he said, I like it, and even have some tears reading the stories. And he wrote a piece of art kind of forward, showing how doctors can be humble when they know the truth and when they learn things. And he has a magnificent experience indeed. And I liked him a lot for a long time. It was a wish for me that he do this. And thankfully, I really appreciate he's done it. And then Mrs. Carol Friend, she's one of the very famous members of Type 1 Grit. She helped me in editing the book, and she wrote a beautiful piece of art also as a forward to the book. And then the book was published traditionally and in Amazon and Kobo as well.
Yeah, we'll put the Amazon links as well for anyone who wishes to support Ahmed and buy the book. So From 10 to 5. So is that blood sugars? You reduced your blood sugars from 10 to 5. How did you do it?
A1C.
Your A1C. Your A1C.
Yes.
So hemoglobin A1C we're talking about, which is the the 3 monthly checkup of your average blood sugar, so to speak. So tell us how you reduced from 10 to 5.
Well, there is some, I would say, laws that I learned from Dr. Bernstein, basically from Dr. Bernstein. That, for example, I can give you these laws. I just followed religiously. I never, deviated from these laws, at least for 7-8 years. Number one, uncertainty. Uncertainty is the enemy of good blood sugar. So when I eat a lot of carbohydrates, I was never able to control my blood sugar because there's a lot of factors influence this. A lot of factors. The time of injection, calculation of carbohydrates count, the spot of injection, if I have gas separations or no, many things. That if I have IOB insulin on board that I need to calculate and forgot, If the labeling is wrong, Dr. Bentin said that it's 20% up or down, mistakes in or tolerance in the labeling. So when you eat a massive one piece of bread, for example, it's just 50 grams of carbohydrates and some other things. When you reach 100 or 80 per meal, it is impossible. This 80 grams raise me 400 milligrams per deciliter, for example. And then if I'm 120, 130, then I go to 520. So I need to work like, I'm in a circus or something just to take this down. And then after that, when you go up 120, I'm more resistant to insulin. So it's just a dilemma. So uncertainty and then predictability. This kind of food helped me a lot to be more predictive to what will happen. And this leads me to the third law, which is the first law with Dr. Bernstein, is the law of small numbers. Yeah. The less I eat, especially from this kind of food, the easy to predict and the easy to fix any errors or mistakes could be happening. Your blood sugar will never go above 130, 140 versus 250 if you eat high carbohydrates. So I inject less insulin, and as a result, I'm less resistant to insulin. As a result, I'm less hungry, and then I cut this vicious circle that I spent 10 years on it. I don't take any information for granted from whoever he is. I don't take anything for granted. I read, I research, and thanks for Google and information and the books and great people in Type 1 Great and other groups, Adi Dykman, Jennifer, and those brilliant people. We consult, we talk, and people like yourself, which I respect and I admire much. I don't take anything for granted. Other law is I teach myself how to master insulin, because it at the beginning when no one tells you what to do, how to inject. Traditionally I would say all over the world, doctors prescribe fixed amount of insulin, especially fast-acting insulin. Okay, take 20 in the morning, 15 in the afternoon, and then in the night take 30. And the people suffer from the up and down, up and down. You didn't know what's happening. Sometimes they go down, sometimes they go up, and they spend the whole day in a very bad mood, and the complication starts, of course. One more thing that traditionally a lot of physicians do, especially here, was now, alhamdulillah, and fine, thank God, it just improved a lot, is the pre-mixed insulin. The pre-mixed insulin is a disaster, indeed, because, it just restricts you in this amount of 30% and 70%, something like Mixtard, for example. It just puts you in a box that you cannot maneuver. And you have always a window. I was taking that for 2 years. That's why I know exactly, by the time the short-acting insulin and the intermediate-acting insulin finish, you have 2 hours of non-covered area. So you go up crazy. And then when you go into the lunchtime, for example, you eat more than the 30% short-acting insulin. And then, when you eat more, you go high again. And then you go down and you go I didn't know about anything about the MDI and carb to insulin ratio, IOBs, the correction factors. I had to teach myself all this. One of the laws that helped me a lot, not the laws, that one of the quotes, Dr. William Belneski, the Behavioral Diabetes Institute, said, I read this 10 years ago, and it's always in my mind. Well-managed diabetes is the cause of nothing. When you go to physicians, they always tell you, it's a progressive disease, and this will happen and must happen, and no matter what you do, it's like Dr. Bernstein said when he consulted his doctor. He said, his doctor told him that it is impossible to reach normal blood sugar. When he asked him, when he researched it and found that rats can, reverse diabetes complications, and he told him, no, it's impossible. Even Dr. Bernstein said, if I have to pretend like an animal to do this, I'll do, but I need to reverse my diabetes complications. So nothing for granted. And at the end, I would like to say, no one with type 1 diabetes or type 2 should underestimate the diabetes, because diabetes is a killer indeed. It's a very silent killer. When I saw people with with severe neuropathy. They are crying from the pain, indeed. So, and they regret that they actually also, I don't want to say kids in 18, 19, 20 years old, they have full complications, kidney and eye, and so it should never be taken lightly.
Totally. I mean, I can hear the passion in your voice. You're passionate about spreading the message of normal glycemia for all diabetics, because it's something we can do, right? With the right type of insulin, with maybe lowering your carbohydrates. Where do you stand with fasting? Actually, on your website, you have a very nice blog, which I think is the story of Khamis and Dorsal. You call it something like that, about the feasting and fasting.
Yeah.
So tell our audience that story. I read it and it was
brilliant. I even choose an Arabic name. Yeah, this is one of the ones that Dr. Fetik liked a lot when he read the book. This story. My book, I actually have information about my case and my experience and how I dealt with it, along with 6-7 stories that I put in kind of wisdom in it. So actually, half the book about fasting. In my book, From 10 to 5, there is a lot of articles or chapters about fasting, because fasting, actually, it happens that I read Dr. Jason Fung book. I think fasting something. I read his old books, actually. He's a brilliant guy also. Really, I admire him. The Diabetes Code, the Obesity Code, and Guide to Fasting, I guess. And I tried. I reach, in sometimes I reach 48 and in 72 hours of fasting, with water fasting. And it made a huge difference with me. And I dropped down my basal 25 to 35%. My insulin sensitivity goes to the sky. I never have a problem with energy. Many physicians are against this because of the understanding of nutrition and ketosis and, diabetic ketoacidosis. And there is a huge difference. I was reading a couple of days ago, Dr. Peter Attea. He has a brilliant article about this in specific nutrition and ketosis differences. And when you talk to them, just tell them that you need to keep a trace of insulin. The basal insulin will cut the way for the liver not to producing more ketones, and this is no problem. I did it for 8 hours, 36 hours, and more. But they are so afraid of the DKA. Maybe they are right in this area because not everyone informed in the usage of insulin, but fasting is a very unique and beneficial way to control blood sugar, especially type 2. Dr. Jason Fung, he treats people with fasting. He has his own protocol in this, and it is never harmful. If you feel it, then you'll eat again. It's just not. We will not give you an injection that will stay with you 20 days for the side effects to be this and this. No, you are just, when you feel something, then just refeed again, and it is not completely cut. Of food. Just some people are fasting with very little or very light keto, kind of like eating 2 eggs, for example, for 24 hours. Some people start like that. I even read in I believe Dr. Thomas Seyfried. Yes, I read his book maybe 6 years back, Cancer as a Metabolic Disease. He is so smart, and these guys are researchers. And I think he's biochemist something, and 25 years he's doing researches about this. And one of the things that I read, I believe in that if you fast 6 or 7 days per year, you are promoting the autophagy, and then you are promoting the cancer kill things, and people almost guaranteed with a high percentage not to get cancer, especially if we have family history about this. So it's beneficial anyway. So I don't know. Some people are against, but some people are with. But I always say you have to try, and then you judge.
Yeah.
And Khamis, in regard of Khamis, it's a story tells in the very old days, our ancestors, um, the lighter, the lighter in weight is easy to escape. The heavier it get caught. You know, he has to run and he has to. Now, as you can see, everything is, you know, everything is there. Everything is in our fridge, in Carrefour, in, you know, mega stores, and we have availability of food and abundance of food all the time, all the time. So even the idea of thrifty genes that just take some fats and put them around our waist to use it the 3 4 days that we don't have food, we don't use it anymore. We just eat and eat, and then we don't use these fats. And that's why it doesn't make any sense to me just to eat glucose all the time, you know, bread all the time. You are just yeah. I could only do this if I'm these all days, and this is the only, you know, only food I find, and then I will train, and I will run, I will fish, I will climb, I will hide, and then, you know, my cortisol will go up and down, and then I'll burn all this in one day, 100%. But now, no, you know, we take cars, we use remotes, and use elevators, escalators, and we don't move. So fasting is a normal thing. It comes in our, you know, in our nature by instinctly. We supposed to do it as we did it a long time ago. But civilization took us to a different level.
I have a Facebook group for type 1 diabetics, only type 1 diabetics who do keto and fasting as well. So I write fasting blogs for fasting with type 1 diabetes. And the longest I've done was 100 hours, which was just under 5 days. I wrote detailed blogs. I'll share the link with you. And I always say, look, you know, it's not something I'm saying every type 1 should do, because you know, fasting, if it's not working for you, don't do it. You don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. But I get annoyed when physicians or doctors say, oh, fasting, no, it's dangerous. Or you have type 1 that you shouldn't be doing fasting. There is nothing stopping us. If we want to do fasting and we're doing it safely, safety is very important, then what's stopping us? I mean, there shouldn't be a boundary in there. Or you're type 1 diabetic, you can't fast. Well, who says so? Because I've been fasting. 100 people in my group are fasting. We're all doing it safely. Why can't we do it? It's, you know, so I like it that you're supportive of the fasting, because the human race, we weren't supposed to be feeding all the time. 6 and
Yeah, as long as type 1 is measuring his or her blood sugar all the time while fasting, knowing that they don't go up, knowing that they have a basal insulin in their bloodstream, then there's no issues. There's no issues. Ketones will never go above 5 or something, you know. Even Maria Emmerich in her book said up to 12 or 13, I believe, is fine. Ketoacidosis is a different story. You have to have no insulin in your body, and your body, and then you have to go very very high in blood sugar, and then it's an issue. But you know, fasting, and when you are taking care and measuring and monitoring, there is no issues at all. Yeah, it's beautiful. Well, anyone I know tried this as type 1 or type 2, they liked it and they continue.
Yeah, it's and you get better at it, I think. You know, first class could be about 16 hours, and then gradually you can extend it to 20 hours. And then it goes on, and you become better at it. I think you gain more confidence as you go along, because you know that you can do it. You know that nothing bad is going to happen to you. So your brain, it's almost like a signal gets into your brain to say you're safe, you're fine. Because you were talking about, you know, measuring and checking and monitoring everything. So let's talk about the technology. Now, most diabetics that I'm in touch with almost on a daily basis, and I'm talking about specifically type 1 diabetics, they do use technology that's available to them. Not all of them, but a lot of type 1 diabetics. They're either wearing a CGM, which is the continuous blood glucose monitor. I mean, I've got one here, and I've got an insulin pump on my other arm.
Okay.
How common are these technological tools to diabetics in Egypt? I'm interested because, you know, I have a lot of audience in my group from specifically Lebanon. And I know that a lot of these tools aren't available to people here. So
Okay. Recently, things are going very good in this regard in Egypt. Even the government start to give insulin pumps to kids with type 1 diabetes, with the effort of some beautiful groups here. They made a huge effort indeed, and even I guess they went to court, and they won. And they get all the supplies and pumps and CGM. Currently in Egypt, I guess this started 2.5 years ago. Not exactly like United States, of course, but it is very promising. This is one side. Regarding myself, please allow me to say that it became like an Apple phone kind of thing. Every year there is another, brand, and then iPhone 13, then 12, then 14, then 16, and everything in 4 or 5 years will become obsolete, and then you have to buy this again, and then the software expires, and it's just overwhelming for some people. I had a pump myself. I used it for 2 years, but I couldn't continue. I'm not saying this. I'm not saying that it is bad. No, at all. Some people are doing. Actually, it helped me a lot with the dawn phenomena. I had a severe dawn phenomena because in LADA, I consider LADA as the worst type of diabetes because it has two characteristics: lack of insulin production, and then high insulin resistance. Unlike type 1 have lack of insulin, but they are good. In sensitivity to insulin is fine. With LADA, you have both. So I have a very severe dawn phenomena, and with the ability to readjust the basal needs as per your needs, it helped me a lot indeed. I had an issue that my skin and myself, I'm very sensitive to any insertion to me. So I always have issues with that. I tried all the cannulas and all these kind of things, even the metal ones. It didn't work to me. I could survive, but it just the idea of I can do it with MDI, multiple daily injection, give me more freedom. So I'm okay with the CGMs, of course, but pumps, I don't like to be connected that much in my daily activities. As an engineer, I go to sites and I meet people, and I'm always in a move. So one more thing is many people think that just putting the pump on, it will adjust their blood sugar. It will control their blood sugars. In here, in many areas of the world, in India, I was in India for 16 times. This misunderstanding in this, the causes of the causes and the methods of the methods. You eat high carb while you are in a pump, your blood sugar will go up, same as MDI.
Yeah.
So some people think that the pump is a savior. Once he put it in, everything will be fine, and they figure out it is not the thing. I know people, if they inject more than 3-4 units by the pump for bolus, for example, they have irritation and things could be, pumpy and some redness and swollen areas. And so I'm not against, but I don't want to put it like a condition of blood sugar control like other people do. I know in the United States it's been taken for granted because insurance are giving these. Some areas of the world you don't even have insulin, and I saw that myself. They've been prescribed only pre-mixed insulin, and they have no chance to get Novolog or Tresiba, or just very saddening. And I have a chapter about this, a true story actually, with someone who sent me a message, and he wants to control, but he cannot get the right insulin. So it's a privilege in some areas of the world, and some other areas have a severe shortage in the insulin needed for their own lives. So it's fine, but the amount of spending in these, if it could partially help those other areas in the world that diabetics to control their blood sugar and even give them the right insulin of those pharma companies who make billions, it will be very supportive and very nice.
Coming back to your pump story, I'm from the UK, and all these devices are covered. Well, actually, my pump is, and the CGM, I had to self-fund it for many, many years. It's now covered by our healthcare system. But the pump was covered right from the beginning. I've been on a pump for 15 years. I wasn't a low carber when they first gave me the pump. And at the diabetes clinic, they gave me the pump and they said, we've got this device now. You're going to do your insulin dosing very smartly using this pump, and your A1C is going to come down. It was stuck at 9.8. It wasn't coming down.
Oh.
So I brought the pump home and I was very excited about it. I explored all the different options, smart ways of delivering insulin, pre-bolus, extended bolus, anything you can think of, anything that was available on the pump, I used it. Did my A1C come down? No, it did not come down. It only came down when I changed my diet. So this actually just tells you that the pump isn't always the answer to all your questions. You've got to address your diet. It's the most important thing. I know many doctors, actually, I speak to many diabetics, and Dr. Ian Lake from the UK, he's on MDI. He takes the multiple daily injections. Dr. Troy Stapleton isn't on a pump. I've interviewed him as well as part of this series. And they're doing, and yourself, you're doing an amazing job without a pump. So the pump is not the important part. Monitoring your blood sugars is, whether you use a glucometer or whether you have access to a CGM, you must monitor your blood sugars closely. And you must learn to adjust your insulin. What are your thoughts about that? I think we need to pass that empowerment to diabetics, type 1 diabetics, and teach them how to adjust their insulin, taking different factors into consideration. What do you think? That education isn't there. It just wasn't there.
There is no substitute for learning, actually, for knowing. Actually. So I believe that diabetics, people with diabetes, they need to be proactive. They need to take the lead and read for their cases and learn and take the process easy, patiently, to understand. One of the laws that I did not mention is any food that raises my blood sugar, the harm is more than the benefit. No matter what. They say, take the banana for the potassium, for example, and then the banana raises my blood sugar to 180. I don't need the potassium. And then I'll take it from parsley, for example. It's more. So this should be a rule that cannot be ignored. Then when it comes to insulin, it needs some effort. It needs 2-3 months of learning and then experimenting. When you see Gary Shiner's book, he puts tables, for example, by weight, by age, like how much the insulin sensitivity factor, for example, or insulin to carb ratio. Then if the rate, for example, is 5, every 1 unit of fast-acting insulin covers 5 grams of carbohydrate as per the table. We need to experiment this. We need to calculate the food and then measure after 1 hour and then measure after 2 hours. And then accordingly, we need to adjust or readjust and keep on adjusting until we reach the number. I'm 1 to 4, I'm 1 to 5. Then my correction factor also is being given by a table. If it is 15, every 1 unit, reduce my blood sugar by 15 mgdl. Then I need to take this number. And if I'm 180 and I take 6 units, if 6 units take me 90 down, then I'm fine. 6 times 15. It's an engineering thing. It's a mathematical thing. You just need to. This is one of the major things. Physicians don't give the right time for the diabetes to teach, because I don't blame him that much for this, because you have no time. You sit with him 5-10 minutes. You just prescribe you fixed units and that's it. Then the main issue comes for the diabetic himself, because he is the one who will get the complication if he does not learn, if he does not just read and just try and be patient with the process. He will never know. He will just go with whatever being told to him. So 5, 6, 7 things, I believe, something like dawn phenomena, for example. Many people are fine all day, but wake up in the morning, even with insulin taking, 180, for example, 170, 160. They are very resistant in the nighttime, especially in the dawn time. And I suffered from this a lot. It was solved by the pump, and then when I left the pump, I have to maneuver. I have to maneuver very carefully because then I have to wake up in 2 a.m., for example. This is all experiment. This is trial and error. Then I choose insulin, for example, Himalayan M, and then take 2 units, 3 units, and see if the peak comes out with my peak of blood sugar. I see in the morning. If not, I go to the short-acting insulin, like Himalayan R, regular, for example, and then I see. It takes me 2-3 months to readjust this until I wake up 90 or 85. It's fine-tuning kind of things, like you do with the car. People need to put this effort because no one else will do this for them. It is there now in books, in groups, in YouTube, with people like yourself. But
And I was going to say, people like yourself, you are doing podcast after podcast, in Arabic, in a language that people can relate to, in a language that people can understand. So, I mean, it's one thing to pass Dr. Bernstein's book to someone who's not going to be able to access or grasp the information, yet it's completely relatable when someone like you, who's also a certified or qualified diabetes educator, puts it all in Arabic, for example, for the Arab audience, and in a language that they can understand. I appreciate your efforts very much.
And actually, you and me and Adi Dykman and all those people, they get the information for free. We don't charge him any fees, we don't do this. We just need to spread the awareness. We need people to know. We need to stop the suffering, actually. And they can go and discuss with the physicians, and they need for a doctor who can understand the importance of normal blood sugars, who can support them really in controlling the blood sugar. This is very important, but people have to do their effort. They must.
The effort needs to come because, you see, we're all different. So I can share my protocol and, my insulin, my basal settings, etc., with someone else. But their management could be completely different from mine. In fact, when it comes to my basal, adjusting the basal insulin, that's the background we're talking about for someone listening and that they're not type 1 diabetic. Basal insulin, it's the background insulin, the long-acting insulin. Yeah. Even that needs reviewing, every 6 months or every year, because it changes.
Exactly. Yes. And when you ask someone what is the normal blood sugar, they don't know. Type 1 diabetes, they don't know. They go with the ADA up to 126 fasting, and then below 180, after 2 hours of eating, and then when you just tell them, okay, just read, and okay, it's supposed to be from 75 to 92 fasting, supposed to be 1 hour after food below 120, and then below 100, after 2 hours. They just get amazed and say, who said so? I remember General put an experiment done by Dr. Christiansen in 2006, very famous study, when he brought non-diabetic people and then let them eat starches, and then he put CGM on them and measured them for 1 week in all timing, in the morning, in the night, after food, before food, and he came out with these numbers, the normal blood sugar, which is Dr. Bernstein said 83, around 83 most of the time. So, but no one knows. And even when some physicians, they go with the guidelines, or most of the physicians go with the guidelines of EDA, some of them, they don't know that American Diabetes Association in 2019 added a phrase in the guidelines, say that low carbohydrate diet is a viable approach for controlling type 2 diabetes. And even said it's very good to reduce glycemia, and even though they said at the end it should be individualized and no number of carbohydrate count should be generalized for everyone, which is fine, okay. But even in ADA line guide, ADA, I always tell the people, if you want, if the doctor guide, if the doctor argue with you with the guidelines of ADA, just tell him it has been changed a little bit when Tracy Brown came. And no one knows that Tracy Brown, when she was the CEO, met with Dr. Bernstein, and she herself said, I'm using partially low carbohydrates to deal with it, which was magnificent at the time. Unfortunately, she left, but the guidelines are there. There is a phrase saying low carb is not a demon no more. It's fine. But many physicians don't know this.
No.
And also many diabetics don't know this.
No, sadly, it's not. I mean, it's a phrase, it's a paragraph they added, but it's not yet the default. It's not yet the standard
True.
approach. And that's why many physicians don't know about it, and many diabetics don't know about it. But we need, I mean, what you're doing, I mean, hopefully what I'm doing will help spread the message that, hey, you can do this. You can do this. We can expect better, from our diabetes. It doesn't have to be all chaotic all the time. We can do something about it. I always say, no one should be pleased with any disease diagnosis, right? I mean, that's a fact. We don't want sickness. We want to be healthy for our entire life. However, if we are going to have some kind of a disease, I mean, I feel grateful that this is what I have, because it's a disease actually I can do something about it. It's not beyond my hands, beyond my control. I can live with it, a fully meaningful and normal life, as long as I can manage it. I mean, what other disease you could live a fully functioning life, without any complications? I'm grateful this is what I have. It doesn't leave me in a hopeless situation, or I feel defeated, or I feel like I'm diseased, I'm sick, I will never get better. I don't have that. I don't have that feeling. I don't have that feeling at all. I feel blessed that this is what I have, and I can do something about it. Right?
True. I always say the same thing. I even have one shop that called My Meter is My Approval. At least I have something I can see where is my blood sugar is. I can see something visual. I can measure my blood sugar, and no other disease you can have this except high blood pressure. But you can see exactly where are you, and then you can correct it. And then if you look at any deviation in our lifestyle, eating low carbohydrate diet, or eating the food that helped us to control blood sugar, that's healthy regardless of being diabetic or no.
Yes.
That is something we should do even if we are not diabetic, eating the right food.
Ahmed, let's come back to your diabetes management. So are you you're primarily following Dr. Bernstein's protocol, right? So tell us about what type of insulin you're using and how you're dosing for protein.
Okay, I use fast-acting insulin,
Novorapid,
which is like Humalog, actually. And I use the Tresiba for long-acting insulin, basal insulin. You follow me? Yeah. For the protein, I have the equation of Dr. Bernstein at 7% of the protein weight. I consider it as glucose, or 35% of the protein value. So, for example, if I have 100 grams in weight for a piece of meat or chicken, I just get 7% of the 100, that is 7 grams of glucose that I deal with. I inject for a long time. So if I eat, for example, vegetables and some salad, I inject at the same time of eating for the vegetables, and half an hour. If I eat protein with that, I just calculate it, and then half an hour after food, I inject for the protein, and it works fine with me. 7% of the weight value, it works fine with me, exactly like he said. It's just because again, it's 7 grams of glucose is nothing. Even if you made a mistake in 10-20%, it's still 7 grams of glucose, and it goes gradually up. It never goes like this. It goes. It's a line of So protein never makes issues with me at all. having the vegetables and having the fibers in vegetables with the protein delay the rise in blood glucose, and then insulin works fine with those. Sometimes, if I eat a little more protein, I inject regular insulin, Humulin R, for example, because the peak goes after 1.5 hours, 1 hour and 15 minutes, and fade from the body about 4 hours or 5 hours. It works beautifully also with protein. Half of the time I use a short-acting insulin, Humulin R. I mainly use a correction, of course, the fast-acting insulin, Humalog. That is for the correction. And that's it, because I don't, if I fell off the wagon and just eat some of those, food sometimes, like, this after Ramadan Eid area, and, something like the Christmas in the US, sometimes we go crazy a little bit, and I see the difference immediately in 2-3 hours. Why? Because I inject industrial dose, like you said, industrial dose of insulin. Because at the end we are human. That's why I tell the people. Some people think if you go low carb, you will die low carb. No, it's just not like that. You will never eat again rice. You will never eat again. Okay, you shouldn't. But if you want once a month, twice a month, it's not gonna be. It's not a killing sentence. You can do this one time, no problem, especially if a kid, and then come back again, no problem. Because sometimes when you go very restrictive, people are getting away. People become resistant. This is human nature. We are not robots. At the end, we are human. And I don't like even to call it a mistake, because even a mistake, it shows that the food is not a blessing. Everything is a blessing. It's just a choice that you need to take based on the circumstances, that you have an illness or a disease, need to be treated respectfully. That's it. If you just, do this and that, eat some rice, no problem. Just adjust, readjust, and come back again. That's it. It's very easy.
True. I've had people come to me. In fact, have people WhatsApp me, send me a WhatsApp message saying, "Oh, I fell off the wagon. So, I had the wrong thing. What am I going to do now? Oh, like, it's not the end of the world. Just get back up again and continue, It happens. Or fasting. When people are type 1s are fasting, they usually use me as their, sort of support here. And, I was supposed to be fasting for 2 days, Nayiri, but I just, like, my blood sugar was low and I just ate something. Just got fine, good. Fine. So nothing.
At least you need to try again. No problem. Yes, true.
Can fast.
True.
Tomorrow maybe. It's fine. It's perfect. It's not the end of the world. Okay. So what do you say about, most physicians saying there are, normal blood sugars, and then there's something that they call normal blood sugars for diabetics. So diabetic normal blood sugars. And they're two different things. I've interviewed R.D. Dykman, of course, and I've interviewed many other diabetics. We get irritated by that because there is no such thing as a, diabetic normal blood sugar and normal blood sugar for the general population. Normal blood sugars are the same for everyone. What are your thoughts on that?
Exactly, because, you cannot fake the facts. You can't fake the facts. Normal blood sugar is a blood sugar of normal people. They have no diabetes, and this well known and being measured, and it's very well known. This is our aim. Like Dr. Bernstein said, every diabetic has a right to live with normal blood sugar like non-diabetics and don't suffer from the complication. So I always say, as an engineer, every action has a reaction. So the same thing, this is a law. If you tell me I'm supposed to be 180 and it's fine, or A1C of 7 or 6.8 is acceptable, then what after 10 years, what will happen? You are putting me above, or you're putting a fake law that is above the normal blood sugar with many grades. If it is 5.2, 5.1, you are accepting 6.4 and say it's an excellent control. What will happen when my kidney fails, or I have a neuropathy, or my eyes has a retinopathy or anything? Who will suffer? Not him. That's why, again, the responsibility comes to the diabetic. He should not accept such things. And you should just search by just a little bit of information. You could come back again and just follow the real thing. And when you know one diabetic, his number is 160, feels normal. 180 feels normal. We know that. You have hazy vision sometimes, you're irritated, you're nervous, you don't feel good, you cannot just perform well in the work. But you try to be 100 or 90, most of the time you are fine. You're completely fine. And this is something not to be told, this is something to be felt by the diabetic themselves. And in the stories of people who are in a 180, 6.9, 7 HA1C, after 10 years have many complications. We know that. Everyone knows that. And the doctors know that. So, but we shouldn't take it lightly. If they take it lightly, it is not their case. I mean, I don't want to say many, but I know some doctors, when their children got diabetes, they totally changed the paradigm. It was a paradigm shift for them. And actually, there is a story. This once also was liked a lot by Dr. Gary. That, in brief, it's a doctor who is treating people with ADA things and all these kind of things. And when his kid, 7 years old, got diabetes, and he did not manage to control it the right way, his numbers are high and fluctuating. He asked one of his patients that he's doing low carb diet and asked him for that advice. And the moral of the story is, it doesn't have to be one of your close relatives to have diabetes to change your paradigm, because we are human, So normal things need to normal reaction. Abnormal things need to abnormal reaction. You cannot say, I will leave my blood sugar high because it is normal, said by my doctor, and then expect that you live without complication. No. And the complication is really hurtful. My shoulder, I wasn't able to rise it any more than like this. Like I would say 100 degrees.
I'm the same, or I was the same, because I had 2 frozen shoulders. It was horrible. I couldn't put my clothing on. I couldn't sit at a table and move my arms to eat. It was so debilitating. It's like, I thought that's the end of the world. I needed help to put my jackets on and my clothes on. It was awful.
Exactly.
But I healed from it. I healed from it by changing what I'm healing. I'm still in the healing process. But they don't warn us enough. They do not warn us enough. And I don't understand why they don't tell us, lower your carbs. Forget about keto. They don't want to support ketogenic diet or very strict sort of ketogenic diet. Fine. But they can at least tell us that, hey, there is an option of eating less pizza. I haven't even heard that from Diabetes UK. I have not even heard that there is such an option. Never.
Ironically, some physicians, when they see their patients achieved 5.7, 5.6, they tell them that you have no diabetes no more. Some of them stop them from taking medication 7 to, and then they say, no, you're not diabetic. No, I achieved this because I'm controlling. If I eat something now, it will go up to 300. I'm just controlling. So it's very sad, actually. That's why I'm so happy when I told you there is some physicians now who believes in this, who believes in low carbohydrate approach. And there is, I don't know in the US, there is, I believe there is also, but in Egypt, at least I know at least 10 or 12 of them or 13.
Ahmed, in Egypt, is there a governing body that oversees physicians and sort of provides them guidelines on what they can prescribe and, whether they can prescribe some diets or lifestyle interventions? Or do they have total
Yes, there is a ministry.
Physicians?
Yeah, there is a Ministry of Health and there is a doctor syndicate as well. Right. They both have this governing authority, and if anyone have an issue, they can go and complain. But it comes again to nutritionists and doctors. The nutritionists take the part of nutrition, and the doctors take the part of medicine. But the time given to patients, not only in Egypt, in many countries, is almost 5 minutes, 10 minutes. In recent years, I would say the last 2 years, the diabetes educator idea started to come in Egypt, and people start to have, learn more about diabetes as a diabetes educators. There is some institution teach how to be a diabetes educator. So people, of course, it goes mainly to the ADE guidelines, but at least the diabetic has a person to sit with and learn how to inject and learn to carb count. And I even have a course in this. I have 2.5 hour course in Arabic, was one of the institutions here to teach people in segmentation everything about diabetes. So to be, some people like visual, interaction. They don't like to read. But there is. But again, it's just a global issue. It's not a country issue. In type 1 greater and in many other groups, I read about, I went to the doctor who was 4.9, and he was amazed. How come you are low all the time? You should not go to this low. No one knows in 4.9 is like 92, 93 is normal thing. How many times you go down, how much hypoglycemia, incidents you have. No one knows that, the tighter you are, the less hypoglycemic you will be. Actually, when I was eating high carb, I might get hypoglycemia every day, twice or 3 times. And when I'm in low carb, almost it goes 6-7 months until something happened by mistake. Maybe it will happen. But I'm stable because I don't ingest much. I don't eat much. My margin of error is less. I don't have the up and down zigzag kind of graph. I'm almost flat. My insulin works very well with my ghrelin, with my leptin, with my, everything is in harmonic together. But when I eat up, my insulin goes up, and then my ghrelin goes down. My insulin goes down, my ghrelin go up, and I'm again hungry. I eat 2 croissants. I need to get the 3 and the 3rd and the 4th and the 5th in 2 or 3 hours. You know this. It's a cycle. Everyone knows. And even Dr. Bernstein talked about the vicious circle. They don't get this unless they get diabetes. And even Dr. William Davis, in his great book, Wheat Belly, he talked about this. He became diabetic, and then the things that he advised to people, it didn't work with him. So he tried this approach.
So I was going to ask you about leptin resistance, because that's something else you talk about in your podcast. So let's finish up with, diabetes and leptin resistance.
Every insulin resistant person in some degree is a leptin resistant. And I'm leptin resistant as well. Losing weight for me is very tough because I'm insulin resistant, because I'm ladder. So if I don't do low carb, I might be 150 kilograms, for example. I go up very easy. I lose weight very hard because my brain don't read the signal of leptin, goes out of my fat, and he thinks I'm starving, although there is a signal saying but he cannot read. I'm resistant to that. So this being solved with a low carb, actually, because and that was the main approach, actually, for me, to keep my weight so I don't go up in insulin. If I go up in insulin, there is more fat, there is more leptin resistance, and the circle goes on and on. So that's why I never blame obese people being obese. Because some of them are hormonal changes and issues that is beyond their control. They need to be taught how to deal with it. And leptin resistance was discovered, I think, in 1990, not that much far. So, it is very hard to deal with it, actually, especially if you inject large doses of insulin, especially with type 2 diabetes or ladder diabetics. But it could be managed very well with low number of insulin taken. And this will never happen unless you eat low carb. You eat high carb, everything goes up. Insulin resistance goes up. No sensitivity, leptin resistance goes up, and then the dilemma of, and even triglyceride goes up. My triglyceride before the low carb was 1,000.
1,000.
1,000. People think, and even I have a chapter called the World Champion in Triglycerides. I was taking double dose of triglyceride medication reduction, and it is never below 300. When a new Dr. Bernstein, I wrote about this in the book. 6 months I followed strictly without medication. The first number came 152. Then another 6 months it came to 99. And this has never happened to me. Now, if I fell off the wagon and just eat 5-6 days, starches again, it goes up to 300, 400. It's just unbelievably, and you know, I know it's a metabolic issue, but food resolved the issue for me. So I would just also like to talk about the supplement issue, because supplement also help it a lot, especially vitamin D3, magnesium glycinate. Those things are helping in insulin resistance a lot. I take magnesium, I take probiotics. I learned that from Maria Emmerich in her book, Keto Adapted. So I take the probiotics, I take the magnesium in the form of glycinate, which is absorbed well. I learned, and this is something changed my life as well, because, you know, we are prone to flu and colds much because our immune system is compromised a little bit. I learned it from Dr. Anderson that the uptake in vitamin C when I'm sick helps a lot with the immune system, and it made miracles with me. When I'm sick or I started to be sick, I uptake this up to 20 grams or something, as he said, for 2 or 3 days. And then instead of taking 2 weeks to be sick, even when I got COVID, and it was going to be severe. In that week, I took about 20 or 25 every day, not all at once, 3,000, 2 hours, 3,000 and 3,000. And then I was fine after 1 week. And this, I always do this. When I get sick, I help my immune system by vitamin C. So vitamin D3, cofactor, magnesium and zinc, and then probiotics. Sometimes I take potassium also citrate to help with other things, muscles and relaxation and all this. And I even read that Maria said that 70% of people get heart attack. If they take regularly magnesium, it shouldn't happen, because it's just a relaxant and it is depleted on our body anyway. It cannot be measured because it's not in the blood mainly. If 1% only from the magnesium in the blood, the rest in our bones and stuff like that, so it cannot be read. Okay, what I said is, I read once in Maria Emmerich's book, Keto Adapted, that people who get heart attacks, if they regularly was taking magnesium, 70% of these heart attacks would never happen, because magnesium is a very relaxant and helps, you know, arteries to widen and stuff like that. So there is 4 or 5 things I take regularly without any fail. D3 helps with the immune system a lot, and then C when I'm sick. And with D3 I take the cofactors of magnesium and zinc, and then probiotics as well. And sometimes I get potassium citrate for the muscles and stuff like that. These things are helping in too much.
Perfect. Where do you stand with salt now that we talked about supplements?
I use Himalayan salts. I don't think it's
you're not
thing,
restricting.
I use a natural. Yes, natural thing. Normally, I don't go. I'm not a fan of salt much, but I don't like without salt also. So in moderate usage with natural source. Yeah. And then of course walk. I walk 1 hour a day regularly, without fail. Even if I come home 9 o'clock from work, and then I have to do it. Yeah, that helps a lot with the insulin sensitivity, indeed.
It does. It's amazing. Right. Yeah. Well, so you're supportive of low carb, you're supportive of fasting. Our channel is called Low Carb and Fasting, and I'm delighted you are in support of both of those sort of approaches. So thank you so much for coming on and spending an hour with me.
That is it's a privilege for me. It's an honor for me. I really appreciate your work and your support for all diabetics all over the world. It's been an honor being with you, really, Nayiri. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ahmed. You have a good evening.